Hello guys, a warm welcome back into the course Thermodynamics. Today we are going to begin with lecture 5 from the course, but make sure you watch the previous ones before viewing this one. In the last lecture we discussed what are the various types of thermodynamic processes, so I hope the concept that is clear to you. In case you have any doubts, please feel free, put your doubts in the comment section, email them to us. The email ID of ours is always written at the end of the lecture, but please do make sure that you do not keep your doubts to yourself. Now, what are we going to learn today? Well, if you remember lecture number 1, there we learned about the system and the surroundings. And there we also learned what are the two types of interactions which can take place between the system and the surrounding, that is matter and energy. So today in this lecture, what we will be talking about is energy and the modes of exchange of energy between the system and the surrounding. And here the topics that we will be discussing are going to be, first of all, what is internal energy, and then we will be talking about heat and work, which is going to be very important as we move further in this course. So I hope you are going to enjoy your learning with me. I am Dr. Ritu Johal, your educator from the channel H2O, the A to Z of chemistry. So let us begin the lecture now. So first of all, let us define what do we mean by energy. It is the capacity of the system to do work. So if your own body is the system, well, how are you going to do work? When you're going to get in some food, and food is going to be that thing that is going to give you the energy to do work. Right? So the capacity of the system to do work, we call this as energy, and work and energy, they are interconvertible. So the food's energy that gave you the capacity to do work. So energy of the food got translated into work. Another example would be, well, that the body is also doing some work in the digestion of that food. So that work that the body is doing in the digestion is giving us some energy. So work gets converted into energy and energy gets converted into work. Both are interconvertible. Now we have two fundamental ways in which we can have energy, and that is potential energy and kinetic energy. So potential energy is mgh and kinetic energy is half mv square. Potential energy is by the virtue of the position of the system in space, whereas kinetic energy is by the virtue of the motion of an object. So this is something that you have studied in physics, but there is something that I would just like to add on if you have not learned it so far. What do we mean by saying that potential energy is by the virtue of the position of the system in space? In space, well, in universe, you can say that two objects, they are naturally either attracting each other or they are repelling each other. So supposedly, if I have two objects A and object B, and naturally in the universe, they are having an attraction between them. Okay. So if such two objects, you try to move away from each other, well, the potential energy of the system or that object is going to increase. Okay. And if you try to bring them closer, well, the potential energy is going to decrease. And if you have two objects A and B, naturally in the universe, they are repelling each other. If you try to bring them closer, well, the potential energy is going to increase. And if you try to move them away, well, the potential energy is going to decrease. For example, if we have a book which is kept on the earth, all right, so you all know that the earth's gravitational pull, this is an attractive force. So this means that the earth is attracting the book. Okay. Now if you try to take this book to some height, so what are you doing? You are trying to pull the book away from the earth, right? So there was an attraction and you are pulling it away. So this means what? That you are increasing its potential energy. And that is why we say at a height, well, we have an object having potential energy. So the stored form of energy is potential energy, right? And if you try to bring this book down back to the earth, well, you are going to decrease its energy, potential energy, because now the book is getting attracted towards the earth and you are bringing it closer. Okay. And similarly, if you have a spring. So naturally, the parts of the spring, they are repelling each other. So if you try to bring them closer, if you try to compress the spring, this means that two parts that they were repelling, they are brought closer. So the potential energy is going to increase. And if you try to expand this spring, well, then the potential energy is going to decrease. Okay, so this is what do we mean by the potential energy is by the virtue of position of the system in space, and kinetic energy, that is by the virtue of motion of the object. So every moving object has kinetic energy. So this is something that you have already studied a lot in physics, so I will not be discussing more about it. So let us just quickly do the units of energy, and before that, one very important thing that you already know, that potential energy and kinetic energy, they are interconvertible. So if we had that book at a height, it was having energy, that was potential energy, and when you're going to bring it closer, well, the potential energy is going to decrease. It is moving down, it is having some kinetic energy. So at the end, what all energy it had, that got converted into kinetic energy. So this is something that you already know from your physics. So what are the units of energy? Well, the SI unit of energy, this is joules, and this corresponds to the amount of kinetic energy possessed by a 2 kilogram object moving at a speed of 1 meter per second. So if you put the value of energy equal to half mv square, so it is going to be 1 joule is going to be equal to 1 by 2 into mass of 2 kilogram into speed of 1 meter per second square. So if you're going to solve it, you will be getting 1 joule is equal to 1 kilogram meter square second minus 2, and 1 kilojoule is going to be equal to 10 to the power 3 joules. So the CGS system units is going to be erg, and if you're going to just put the values, 1 erg is going to be equal to 1 gram per centimeter square second minus 2, and if you solve the conversion between 1 joule and erg, what you will be getting is 10 to the power 7 erg. So 1 kilogram into 1 gram 1000, and 1 meter into centimeter 100. So 3, 5 and 7 zeros. Okay, so 10 power 7 erg. Another unit of energy, this is calorie, and if you're going to convert calorie into joules, 1 calorie is 4.184 joules, and 1 kilocalorie will be equal to 10 to the power 3 calories will be equal to 4.184 kilojoules. So these are important units that you have to remember for your numericals. So now we are going to learn one more term, and that is going to be a new term and a very important term in thermodynamics, that is internal energy, and this we denote by the letter E or by U, but according to the IUPAC recommendation, we denote it by U. So throughout the whole study of thermodynamics, we will be referring to internal energy as U only. So this is something that you have to remember. And internal energy, what do we mean by it? Well, we have a system. What is the system made up of? It is going to be made up of atoms, molecules, ions, and these atoms, molecules, ions, well, it is going to be having their own different types of energy, potential energy, kinetic energy, all those energies that are present in the system. If we sum total all of them, well, that we call as internal energy. So let us define that. So the total energy inherently stored in a system, we call that as internal energy, and this is the energy of the atoms, ions and molecules of the system, and it is going to be in various forms like potential energy, kinetic energy, nuclear energy, chemical energy, etc. And when we are going to sum total all of these, we will be calling it as internal energy or intrinsic energy. So very simply, you can define this as sum total of all forms of energy stored in a substance or in a system is called as internal energy. Now, one very important thing that you have to remember is that internal energy is a state function. It is going to depend upon the initial and the final state of the system. For example, when you get up early in the morning, you have some energy in you. Fine. So you had a sleep, you have some energy, and your mother says, now get up, first of all, do some exercise, make yourself fresh, and then you can have your food. Fine. So what you do is you go out to do some exercise. You do that exercise whether you're going for a walk, you're going for a cycling, you're doing some yoga, or you're skipping a rope, so what, or you're going to a gym, whatever way, well, you are going to spend that energy, and after spending out that energy, you come back home, drop dead on your bed. Now, mom, please give me some food. I have no energy left. So what this means is that there was some energy in you at the start of the process. There was no energy in you at the end of the process. But how you spent that energy is not important, right? So it is only dependent on the initial and the final state of your system. So internal energy, therefore this is going to be a state function. And also this internal energy is an extensive property. It is going to be dependent upon the amount of substance that is present in the body. Okay, so a weak person may not be able to perform that much of exercise as a strong or a heavily built person. Okay. So the internal energy is going to be depending upon the amount and the nature of the substance, the pressure, temperature, etc. For example, if we compare the internal energy of 1 mole of carbon dioxide and 1 mole of water, well, under similar conditions of temperature, the value of internal energy is going to be different. And similarly, if you're going to compare the internal energy of 1 mole of carbon dioxide and 2 moles of carbon dioxide, well, that is also going to be different. So it is going to depend upon the amount as well as the nature of the substance along with pressure, temperature conditions also. Fine. So this is going to be an extensive property. Again, for all thermodynamic properties that you will be learning, you should be able to tell which is a state function, which is a path function, which is an extensive property, which is an intensive property. Now the value of U, well, we cannot find out the absolute value. There is going to be some fixed value of internal energy of a system, but we cannot find out the absolute value of that. Why we cannot do that? Because the values of different types of energies stored in a system, they cannot be determined accurately. So we will be using some indirect methods to find out what is going to be the internal energy of a system, and for that, for example, we use a bomb calorie meter to measure the value of internal energy. But that is going to be coming up in the learning after a few lectures. But just remember for now that we cannot find out the absolute value of U. You do not have some way to just find out that yes, the internal energy of the system is going to be this much value. Now, because internal energy is a form of energy, so obviously the SI unit is going to be joules. 1 joule is going to be equal to 10 power 7 erg. 1 calorie also is going to be the unit of energy. So this is going to be equal to 4.184 joules. So this is what you have already learned. Now, supposedly there is a chemical reaction happening because we are talking about thermodynamics in chemistry. So chemical reactions are obviously going to be important. And you have to find out the change of internal energy in a chemical reaction. So how will you do that? Well, we have some reactants which are forming products. Okay, so these reactants, they had their own internal energy, which we will be denoting by UR, and there will be some internal energy of the products, which we will be denoting by UP, and the change in internal energy is going to be UP minus UR, the internal energy of the products minus internal energy of the reactants. Now, if the internal energy of the products is less than that of the energy of the reactants, then the value of delta U will be negative. Such a reaction, we will be calling this as an exothermic reaction. So whatever is going to be the difference of this energy, well, that is going to be the energy that is going to be released out. Fine. And if the energy of the products is going to be more than that of the reactants, well, then delta U will be positive, and such reactions, they will be called as endothermic reactions. Okay, one more thing that you can remember over here is that the internal energy of the reactants, you can call this as the initial state of the system, right? And the products, this is the final state of the system. So if I denote the internal energy of the reactants as the initial state to be UA and this is the final state, so we refer to this as UB. Okay, so delta U, you can also write this as UB minus UA. The internal energy at the final state minus the internal energy of the initial state of the system, this is also going to be equal to delta U. So this is something that you have to remember about internal energy. More things, they are going to come up obviously in the lecture. So next we start with the very important topic, the discussion on the modes of energy exchange. How the energy gets exchanged between the system and the surrounding. Well, there are two important modes for that. One is going to be heat and the other is going to be work. So whenever there is going to be a change in the state of the system, either there is going to be heat that will be generated, either there is going to be work that is going to be done. When it is heat that is generated, well, that heat is either going to pass into the system or it is going to pass out of the system depending upon the circumstances. And the other is that work can be done. So work can be either done on the system or it can be done by the system. When it is going to be heat, well, heat flows due to a temperature gradient. When there is going to be a temperature difference between the system and the surrounding, the energy that is going to be exchanged will be always in the form of heat. And when it is something else apart from the temperature gradient, a temperature difference, well, it is going to be always exchanged in the form of work. So work is going to be done due to an imbalance of a generalized force. There is a difference in some force between the system and the surrounding. It is going to be called as work. Wherever it is going to be a difference in temperature, that is going to be generating heat. Okay, so let us discuss about these two forms of exchange of energy a bit more in detail. So now we first of all discuss heat transfer, and whenever it is going to be heat that we will be referring to, we will be addressing to this with the symbol small q. Okay, so wherever we are going to be using formulas to understand about heat, work, internal energy, etc., we are going to use symbols for them rather than writing complete heat, energy, work, etc. So these symbols, they are therefore going to be very important for you people. All right, so what is heat transfer? Energy transfer occurring due to the temperature gradient between the system and the surrounding. This is referred to as heat transfer. So what this means is that supposedly we have a system which is hotter than the surrounding. It is at a higher temperature than the surrounding. Then the energy is going to be lost by the system to the surrounding in form of heat. Okay, so what this means is that the temperature of the system will decrease and the temperature of the surrounding will increase. And supposedly if the system is colder than the surrounding, then it is going to be the energy which is going to come from the surrounding into the system in form of heat. That means that the surroundings, this is going to be decreasing its temperature and the temperature of the system is going to increase. And this is going to be taking place through molecular motion till the thermal equilibrium is attained, when the temperature of the system and the surrounding, this becomes equal. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Okay, now one very important thing that you have to remember is, like we use the letter Q, well, you have to use certain sign conventions for the system gaining in heat or the system losing heat. So what you have to remember is that Q is going to be positive if the heat is absorbed by the system. When will be heat absorbed by the system? When the surroundings, they are at a higher temperature than the system. And Q is going to be negative when the system is going to evolve heat, which is going to happen when the system is at a higher temperature than the surrounding. So what this means is, for example, if there is an exchange of 10 kilojoule of energy in the form of heat between the system and the surrounding. Okay, so if this 10 kilojoule of energy is being evolved by the system, you will be writing this as minus 10 kilojoule. So just writing it as Q equal to minus 10 kilojoule, this tells me that the system is losing energy. Okay, and if I write Q equal to plus 10 kilojoule, this would mean that the system, this is gaining energy. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Now another thing that you can remember is that Q, this is measured in the terms of TB minus TA, where TB is going to be the temperature of the system and TA is the temperature of the surrounding, right? So you can see what is going to be the temperature difference, and in terms of that we can measure Q. How we will be measuring it, that we will be talking about in the upcoming lectures. And now you can understand that this energy exchange which is taking place between the system and the surrounding, this is only heat. No work is being done, only exchange in the form of heat. Okay, so this exchange that is taking place, well, this is going to affect the internal energy of the system. So what you can say is, therefore delta U is going to be equal to Q. So whatever is going to be the heat exchange, well, that is actually the difference between the energy of the system and the surrounding, and hence you can say that delta U is going to be equal to Q when there is only heat exchange taking place between the system and the surrounding. No work is being done. So these are certain important things that may be sounding a bit difficult now, but as the course is going to progress, everything is going to be very crystal clear to you. Trust me. Okay. So for now, just remember these points. So now let us discuss what do we mean by work. So work is going to be that energy transfer occurring by the virtue of doing some work on or by the system. Now what do we mean by on the system, by the system? Let us understand this with the help of an example. So the example that we have taken here is of a container which is fitted with a piston, and in this container we have taken some gas. So whatever gas is going to be present inside, well, it is going to exert some pressure on the walls of the container as well as on the wall of this piston from inside. So that we refer to as P gas, and whatever is the pressure outside that is being exerted on this piston, that we refer to as P external. If you cannot see any pressure being applied, well, there is something, that is the atmosphere is exerting pressure from outside. So that is also going to be P external. So some pressure is there on the outside, and this piston moves up and down in accordance with the difference in the pressure of the gas and the external pressure, such a way that it equalizes the pressure on both sides of the piston. Okay, so now supposedly the pressure of the gas inside is greater than the pressure outside. What will happen is, well, the piston is going to move upwards because this gas is going to exert some force on the piston, right? And this is going to move up till the pressure of the gas becomes equal to the external pressure. Okay, so supposedly this is what has happened. Now the piston has moved up, right? Now the piston has moved up. This means that this gas, which was the system, right? So the container which encloses this gas, this is what we have as a system. And what the system has done is that, well, there was a piston which was down. Now it has moved up. What has caused the piston to move up? Well, it is this gas. So there has been work done by the system. And supposedly, if we have the opposite, that there is external pressure which is greater than the pressure of the gas, then what will happen? Well, the piston will move down. When the piston is moving down, it is because of the surroundings that the piston has moved down, or you can say that work is done by the surroundings on the system. So this is what we mean by on the system and by the system. Now, what is going to be work over here? So supposedly we take the example where the pressure of the gas was greater than pressure external. So the force has been applied in the upward direction. The piston has also moved in the upward direction. That force into the distance moved, in fact it would be the displacement that the piston has taken, that we will be referring to as work. So work is said to be done whenever the point of application of force is displaced in the direction of force. So the point of application of force is this upward direction on this piston, right? So it is going to be, point of application is here on the wall of the piston from inside, and this has been displaced in the direction of force. So force was also upwards and the piston has also moved upwards. So then we say that the product of this force and displacement is what we refer to as work.
So work is expressed as a product of two factors, intensity factor and the capacity factor. The intensity factor is going to be the generalized force that is being applied, and the capacity factor is going to be the generalized displacement that is taking place. And the product of two, this gives us work done. Now, work done on the system can be reversible or irreversible depending upon the magnitude of the imbalance of these generalized forces. So, which side the force is more, right? That is going to tell us that work is done on the system or by the system. And then if the magnitude is going to be more, well, this means that the piston will move very quickly upwards. That process is going to be called as irreversible process that you learned in the last lecture. And if that imbalance of the forces, the difference of the forces on the two sides of the piston is going to be very less, well, then the piston is going to move slow and steadily upwards every time an equilibrium is going to be attained, and that process we call as the reversible process. So everything we have discussed in the last lecture, if you've not watched that, please do watch that. Then you will be able to understand work done on the system. This can be reversible or irreversible depending upon the difference of the generalized forces, the difference of the driving force and the opposing force that you learned in the last lecture. So in absence of any opposing force, the motion itself produces no work. So what does this mean? Supposedly there is a car which is moving on the road. Okay. Now when the car is moving on the road, well, there is some opposing force. What is that opposing force? That opposing force is friction. If there would have been no friction and the car once moving on the road, well, it will keep on moving. It will not stop. So you are not going to apply actually any force to move that car now because it is moving on its own now. So we say that no work is going to be done in absence of any opposing force. We are doing work for moving a car or walking on the road or cycling on the road because there is an opposing force, the force of friction. Okay, so in absence of any opposing force, the motion itself produces no work. And similarly, in absence of any motion, even the strongest applied force cannot generate work. So you are standing in front of a wall, you are applying a lot of force, but the wall is not moving. So that also is no work done. And the best example everybody takes over there is that you are sitting and studying for 10 hours in a day. Well, you are not doing any work because you are not moving, right? So in the absence of motions, even the strongest applied force, this cannot generate work. So there has to be some displacement and there has to be some opposing force which is going to oppose the motion of the force. Okay. Now, very importantly, what you have to remember over here is some sign conventions, again, just like you did for heat as well. So doing work on the system, when work is done on the system, it increases its energy. Hence, work done is going to be positive, and work done by the system, it decreases its energy. Therefore, work done is going to be negative. Okay. So whenever we do some work, well, we spend our energy. Whenever we are somebody is helping in our work, we are conserving our energy. You can say in that way that if nothing else, that you were to supposedly to do some work and somebody else did for you. So you work was done for you. Can, if I just talk it about you as a person, not about these machines. So that means you are conserving your energy. So the energy of the system has been retained in that sense. So that means that work done on the system is going to increase the energy. Therefore, the work done is positive. It's good for you that your energy has been increased. And if you have to do work, well, there is going to be a decrease in energy, and well, that you do not like. So work done is going to be negative. So now let us quickly tabulate the differences between heat and work. So heat is going to be when there is going to be a driving force, that is a temperature gradient. So whenever there is going to be a difference in temperature, Well, the driving force is that difference in temperature, and that we will be always referring to as heat. And when the driving force is imbalance of any other force, well, we will be calling that as work, like the difference in the pressure. Then heat is the energy transfer due to imbalance of forces at microscopic level, and the work, it is the energy transfer due to imbalance of forces at a macroscopic level acting through a distance. Heat is a random form of energy transfer, whereas work is an ordered form of energy transfer. So these are a few differences that you have to remember between heat and work. So let us quickly discuss the units of heat and work, although they are going to be same as energy, because both of them, they are forms of energy, but just let us quickly tabulate these so that you remember them always. Okay, so heat energies, they are measured in calories, kilocalories, joules or kilojoules, such that 1 calorie is going to be equal to 4.184 joules and 1 kilocalorie will be equal to 4.184 kilojoules. The SI unit of heat is going to be joules. Work is going to be measured either in ergs or in joules, such that 1 joule is going to be equal to 10 power 7 ergs, and the SI unit of work is also going to be joules. Now, when I say 1 joule, this is going to be equal to 1 Newton meter when we talk about it as work, and 1 Newton meter is going to be equal to 1 kg meter square second minus 2. How did we get this? Well, work is going to be equal to force into distance, and force, the unit is going to be Newton, and distance is going to be the unit in meters. So this is going to be Newton meter is equal to 1 joule. And force, this is equal to mass into acceleration. So we have work equal to mass into acceleration into distance. So mass, the units are going to be kg, acceleration, it is meter second minus 2, and the distance is going to be meter. So if you're going to sum up all this, well, it is going to be kg meter square second minus 2. Okay, so this is how do we get that 1 joule is going to be equal to 1 kg meter square second minus 2. So this is, I hope, easy for you people, but you have to remember this very importantly. Now, one thing that you have to remember over here is that we have exchange of energy taking place generally in the form of heat and work, but apart from that, there are also other ways in which the exchange can take place, and that is going to be radiant energy, electrical energy, which are going to be the modes of transfer of energy between the system and the surrounding. Now, one very important thing is that we just now said that 1 calorie is equal to 4.184 joules. How did this come up as? Well, he was a scientist who observed that whenever mechanical work is done, heat is produced. And whenever there is going to be a cyclic process, a process where the initial state and the final state of the system is the same, then net mechanical work done, W, by the system, this must be proportional to the heat produced, Q. Okay, and we say that work, this is going to be directly proportional to, therefore, Q, the heat produced, or W is going to be equal to JQ, where J is a constant of proportionality, and this is called as the joule mechanical equivalent of heat, and the value, this came up to 4.184 into 10 power 7 erg, or 4.184 joules. Okay. So on spending 4.184 into 10 power 7 erg, or 4.184 joule of mechanical energy, 1 calorie of heat is produced. That is why we say that 1 calorie of heat, this is equal to 4.184 joules. So now let us quickly recap and revise the sign convention for heat and work, which is going to be very important for you throughout the whole learning of thermodynamics, right? So the signs of Q and W, they are going to be related to internal energy, such that when Q or W, this is going to be positive, this means that the energy, this has been supplied to the system in form of either heat or work, and the internal energy of the system is going to increase. So what this means is, whenever heat is going to be absorbed by the system from the surrounding, Q is going to be positive, and when work is going to be done on the system, W is going to be positive. And when Q or work, this is going to be negative, this means that the energy has been evolved by the system in the form of heat or work, and the internal energy of the system is going to decrease. So you are going to say heat evolved out from the system to the surrounding, it is going to be Q negative, and work done by the system, okay, so this is going to be work negative. So this is going to be very important, you have to remember this very well.
So that would be all for this lecture. I hope you've enjoyed your learning with me. You understand now the various concepts that we have learned in this lecture. In the next lecture, we will be continuing our discussion about work. We will be learning about the various types of work. So that is going to be again a very important lecture, and I hope you would not like to miss that. So please be with me for the next lecture. See you again. Have a nice day. God bless you.